Einen wunderschönen guten Tag und herzlich willkommen heute mal hier aus einer anderen Perspektive. Ich bin sehr froh und sehr dankbar, dass ich hier heute Rahul Reddy einmal zu einem Interview überzeugen konnte. Wundert euch nicht, dieses Interview wird in Englisch stattfinden. Mein Englisch ist nicht das Beste, aber es gibt bei YouTube eine Übersetzungsfunktion oder einen Übersetzungsknopf. Den könnt ihr gerne drücken und dann passt das Ganze auch. Deswegen wechsle ich jetzt zum Englischen, sonst ist das auch ganz schön unhöflich gegenüber Rahul. Rahul, thank you for being here online
Thank
with
you for
me.
having me.
Yeah, I'm very honored. I just have to tell you a little bit of my first time, of my first experience with you.
Yep.
You are so much on cam on regionals and internationals. I'm doing like German castings for the German community,
Sure.
and I learned about the first time I learned about you was with your Regidex.
Oh,
Like
yes. Good times.
awesome. I loved it really, and yeah, and you did switch to Lugia.
Yeah.
You have also. I can personally admit, or I really think, you're the best Lugia player out there.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate the kind words.
yeah, and that's just very nice. But before we go into the pro scene, I have another questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
When did you start with Pokemon TCG, and what was it like then?
So like I think most kids when I was growing up, Pokemon was like, so I'm 29. So kind of when Pokemon first came out, and started kind of hitting the markets and doing stuff, I was like, 3, 4 years old. And so it was one of those things that I picked up as a hobby as a child, but just like, how you're a young kid, you try everything, whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped, like I played a little bit on the playground or whatever, and then
Mhm.
didn't care about it too much. But then when I got older, so about 8th or 9th grade, probably 2011, 2010, 2011, I got back into the game with a couple of friends. And at that point, I started going to a league nearby, which back then it was the library, at the public library. So I would go every Friday after school.
Okay. Yeah.
I would get home from school, I would throw my backpack down, I would get on my bike, and I would bike 3 miles into the town.
But how do you talk in a library? You have to
It was
communicate.
it was like a side room,
Okay.
there was like the main part, yeah. So it was like a little side room for like extracurriculars. I think like they had an after school program like every day for different stuff. So that's where I started, and I met a lot of really cool people, some friends. Didn't really compete too much. I learned about competing that year, but because I was still in high school and my parents were very strict on, getting into a good university, all that stuff. I came from like a traditional Asian upbringing, so studies come first above all else. If you do your studies, then we don't care what you do, kind of thing.
As an educator myself, I really appreciate that you say something like that. Yeah.
So during that time in my life, I didn't really get to play too much. I would maybe play like cities, which were like League Cups back in the day. I would play maybe estates, which was usually like no less than an hour drive. So probably a train ride for you guys, something close by. But I never got to travel too far besides like a nationals once per year. But that's also because it was just in my summer, so I got to go. And I vividly remember my first nationals in 2011, my U.S. nationals, because back in the day we didn't have social media like we do now.
Yeah.
We don't have any of the same things telling you that there's other people out there who love the same things you do. So I remember going to nationals for the first time, walking into this hall with like thousands of, I would say probably like 2,000-3,000 people that all just loved Pokemon, and it was so cool. I remember the Friday, so day one, they split us up because I was in seniors that year.
Yeah.
So we played 5 rounds of Swiss day one, 4 rounds the next day. So after my 5 rounds of Swiss, because it was just best of one, we were done at like 2 o'clock. I spent the entire rest of the day in the open gaming room, just playing games with people, walking around, doing stuff all day, because it was such a like cool experience back in the day. But I didn't play too much then. And then when I got to university, I found myself with a lot more time.
Okay.
I was able to manage my studies, and I was able to, travel on weekends to tournaments, basically pick my schedule around all that stuff. And, I managed to make both worlds work. I was committed on getting a good degree, and I was committed on finishing my, playing Pokemon to the top of the level. And I just, one thing led to another, and here I am.
And that's awesome that we as a Pokemon community have you, because when we look at your tournament history, yeah, you can be really proud of yourself.
Thank you so much.
My personal feeling is Perth is like a really good city for you. Like
I love going to Perth, yeah.
And yeah, when we talk about region lids, I watched your video about Birmingham. Birmingham
Hmm.
was a little bit rough, I guess,
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
but uh, but I think that's totally normal
I
for.
feel like it's really hard to have a level of consistency where you don't have a bad tournament in a
Mm,
season. Like with how often you play, like I think it's expected to have one or two bad ones. And obviously I think Birmingham was one of the worst for me.
mm,
Um, but it's how you come back from the next one, right? Like
yeah,
obviously it doesn't feel great having that finish with EOIC so short around the corner. But that's a little bit of a newer format, more time to prepare, get back on that horse, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, okay. What is your just a little bit? I have
Yeah, please.
like little parts, and it's like a hard cut. But what is your favorite deck, and why is it Lugia at the moment?
Right, well, right now it definitely is Lugia, just because it's
Hmm.
one of the ones where like if you set up, it's just the most powerful,
Yeah.
and I feel like it doesn't struggle with the problems of time.
Hmm.
So my playstyle generally, so people will say that Pokemon doesn't have playstyles and whatever, but I think that's true and not true at the same time. Because if you have a
Hmm.
style you like playing, like if you're a control player, like Sander, for example,
Hmm.
you enjoy playing that style. So at the end of the day, you're going to perform better if you're doing something you enjoy.
Hmm.
So for myself, I like to play pretty aggressive decks,
Yeah.
but they all have to have some sort of, I think, combo, like
Hmm.
our options. Back when we played Reggies, you could attack with all six of them. You had different options, different lines. With this version of Lugia, you also have my version plays all the different attackers, the lightning energy. So in a lot of situations where people would often say the game is over or there's no chance, I can find that like small 2-3% chance to win.
Ah,
I think a good example is when I played top four in Dortmund against
yeah.
Stefan.
Hmm.
I thought that game was over. I think everyone watching thought that game three was over. And I was able to thread back the needle. I was down three prize cards. I didn't have a single R caps in the discard.
Ah.
Managed to come back from what I thought was the end of my tournament. So having options is usually my best. And I think my favorite deck of all time that did that was Vespiquen
Yeah.
back in the day
Yeah.
because you could basically put anything you wanted in the deck because if you
Okay.
didn't need it, just put it in the discard, just get some more damage.
Hmm.
And so I loved playing that in expanded. I don't want to think about expanded now. I feel like they broke the game too much. But back in the day, expanded was a little
Hmm.
bit more fun. I feel like right now it's probably just whoever can turn one lock the other person.
Too much options for
Yeah, too many
expanders.
options, too little playing the game.
Yeah. Um, I smiled a little bit because you said about mm, you said something about the Reggies, and I immediately have to think about the new Reggie, what is coming with prismatic evolutions.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, what are your feelings about that for Lugia? It's
That
really great
card's
addition.
so good. I think that
Yeah.
card is so good. I think Lugia had a couple problems. Obviously, like, we played the
Mm.
Raikou and stuff like that to deal with the Charizard matchup.
Yeah.
I think Dragapult was always a little bit of a scary matchup as well.
Mm.
Um, but now you get this guy who just like beats both of them down.
Yeah.
Like now you don't have to boss every turn; you can just beat them down. So you have a good matchup into two of the best decks in the room.
Mm.
You have Iron Hands for Gardevoir. Um, Obviously, I don't really know how we're gonna deal with some of the newer threats like Arcaludon and stuff.
Mm.
And Badoo is a little bit annoying, obviously, at the end of the day. But if a deck is Badooing you,
Yeah.
we're probably both taking some time to set up slowly, so you could probably read the wind. But
Mm.
having Gigas plus maybe some Thornton or Stretcher combo gives you these options to just you don't need boss that turn. You can just take the prizes where you need to and then go from there.
Ah. Yeah, that's
Sorry.
yeah. Don't have to be. It's yeah. I think it's a great addition to the deck. Yeah, you said something about Badoo. What are your feelings about
Yes.
that card? I mean, prismatic evolutions is a whole another topic with all the prices and everything. I don't want to talk
Yeah, yeah,
about
sure.
that, but for us as players, as someone who wants
Yeah.
to play the game, um, what are your feelings about Badoo?
I think it's really good for the metagame because I think for a lot of players, I think um, to put in perspective, a lot of players have never played with item lock
Hmm.
in their lifetime. Like I think the closest we've had is Banette, Gardevoir, but that's like a completely different deck, right?
Yeah.
That's like that wasn't really item lock. There was like a lot going on.
Hmm.
But up till now, us as players have not had, or like myself, I'm an old timer, right? So I've been playing forever. But a lot of the new age players who kind of came after the COVID boom, or in the last like 5 years, I think the game has grown exponentially. They've never played with item lock, so it's going to be very interesting to see how people play because they're not going to expect. They're used to this sort of aggression, this style of play, the pace of games, but all of that gets broken because now what do you do when you have poorly managed your resources and your opponent, who's a veteran, goes counter catcher, Iono, Badu,
Yeah.
and now they buy an extra turn. You thought you had checkmate next turn. You don't have it. You have to wait one more turn. You miss again. They build up their board. 6-1 prize comebacks. Things like that will happen a lot more often, where games are not over till they're over now with Badu.
Okay. But in the current, not but the current format, 15 minutes for best of 3, and taking matches a little bit longer, I think you have to develop the skill to decide, is my game over or not, to maybe get the win or the draw at least.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult in this format, I think, because this is the first time we have a pretty slow. I think first time since the Lost Box Gardevoir format of 2023, like that NAIC format where all the games took forever.
Yeah.
This is the first time where like I think we're going to be back to that where like Gardevoir is good, Dragapult is good, but all these slow decks are good, meaning that finishing 3 games is going to be quite difficult. So just knowing when to pick up your cards, knowing when you're out of resources is going to be very important. And I don't think even I'm perfectly good at that, especially at the beginning of a format like this. So we'll see how that adjusts, and I think the game will get even slower with rotation too. So like, it'll be interesting to see how players adapt.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the best skills or strategies a player has to develop to be good at Pokemon TCG?
First off, know your deck inside and out. So know why you're playing every single one of your 60 cards. If you're showing up to a tournament and you don't know why you're playing certain cards, you're not going to make the full use of them. It seems simple, but a lot of the time players will like copy a deck online, not really understand why they're playing a deck, and show up and they just won't adhere to game plans. Try to have a game plan in most situations. I think that's way easier to do in today's system because there's so many master classes, so many guides. Players are putting out YouTube content. Like there's free content, there's paid content, whatever you want to do. It's everywhere, and you can have a game plan going into a matchup. Having a game plan is better than having no game plan because if you're trying to figure something out, you're basically losing game one trying to figure it out.
Okay.
But if you have an idea and it works in game one, then you have your one game up, you know? So that's another thing. And I think just get comfortable with one deck. I think a mistake that a lot of newer players do is try to bounce between all the top decks. They'll see that, oh, Charizard won this regionals, but Drago won the last regionals, and then Goldengo won the other one, you know, like, and they'll start bouncing between decks because they're trying to pick what they think is the best or trying to metagame. It doesn't matter. There's like 2,000 players. There's like 1,400 to 2,000 players. Your 9 rounds are going to be very different from someone else's. Like in Birmingham, I played against one Drago, and it was round 8. I didn't play against a single Zard. I didn't play against any of the decks on the graphic. I played against Roaring Moon, Gouging Fire, or Caledon. Like, it doesn't matter. What you sit across the table is the only thing that matters.
When we met at Stuttgart,
yes,
I played the English word in German is Bridoladon.
That one makes more sense because he's a bridge.
Yeah, the bridge. And a good matchup for me were the Regigigas, but I had like 3 raging boards in the first 5 rounds, and it was really, really hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And I played it a lot online, and for me personally, I also have a feeling the deck is not that bad, but I have to get better and improve to know what to do against each deck.
Exactly. And if you have an idea of what to do against each deck, at the very least, you're giving yourself more win percentage points than something else.
Okay. Do you think it is a little bit harder for people starting now because right before the rotation we have a lot of good decks? I think such a broad field of different Pokemon that you can actually play. You played Clove at Stuttgart.
I did. It was very fun.
I can imagine, but why? But why did you switch?
So I'm not a player. I know it's strange to say because I think when I've been on my most successful, I've stuck to the same deck. But I'm the kind of player who if I like a deck, I'll stick with it no matter what, because I think it's good. I think I'm better with it. But if I don't like a deck, I will switch every single tournament. So, like if you look at this season, it's all Lugia. But if you look at last season, I didn't play the same deck for a single tournament in a row. Because each time I make the mistake that I always tell people not to do of trying to metagame.
Okay.
But sometimes I think it's fine because if you put the work in, if you put the time in, you should know how every deck works. You should be pretty decent with it. So I thought Cloth was really well positioned. The players who played it for the first time in Sacramento, they so kindly shared their guide and their testing process with me. I messaged them on Twitter, see what they were talking about, and they gave me like a rundown. And I was on my plane. I had a pretty long plane over to Stuttgart. So on my way to Frankfurt, I was just sitting there reading the guide on the plane, and I was like, this deck makes sense. I like this deck. I'm gonna try it. And so I built it. It looked fun. And I was with some of the guys, Nico and those guys, and they were just like, if you play it, I'll play it. And I was like, all right, let's play it. Let's have some fun. So at the end of the day, like, even though we want to win and we think the deck can win, because like Robin made top 8, right, for example, with it. So it's like, let's just have fun every time we play Pokemon. Is the idea.
Yeah, and not also you did have fun. You also had a good standing at the end. It was a
top 128, yeah.
Yeah, that's what more can you expect? Can you want? You can't always be the best, but as I said, when we look at your tournament history, most of them are really good, and that's something that you can just be proud of. As I told you before. What decks don't you like to play against? Are there any strategies or really Pokemon cards you don't want to play against?
Control is one of the few ones where I have to think a lot more. Because if it's a good control player, they probably know what they're doing. So the game's going to come down to the wire. I hate usually playing against the BDIF unless my deck is like good into it. So like against Drago, when I'm not playing Lugia, it's a little bit annoying. But if I am playing Lugia, I feel comfortable, right? Like even back in the format where I was playing Reggie's, Silver Tempest Lugia was like one of the best. It was the best deck in the format by far. Everyone will agree with you that it is. But I felt comfortable in that matchup every single time. I guess it's like unexpected decks that are aggro are really scary. Like that have catchers, flip cards. Anything with a lot of flip cards is really scary to me because sometimes it feels like it's not in my control whether I win or lose. It's just on the flips.
Yeah.
And that's I think when I feel the least comfortable in a match.
And when your opponent plays the third catcher and heads again, and you just sit there like, okay, come on. You do have a training group, do you?
I do.
And what would you say? How much time do you spend in a week for like a training session or just with a Pokemon TCG?
Typically so at the beginning of a format or a beginning of something new, I try to put as much time as possible. Like I think like front loading is a smart way to do it because if you put the time in early, it'll carry you through the format. So I think about the game quite a bit. Like maybe I'll be looking on Twitter, results, have a stream up in the background, something throughout the day, like while I'm working, because I do software engineering is my full-time job. So in the background, I'll have like something in the background, Pokemon related, because I just I like have like a Zool stream or something, So I'm constantly absorbing this information, and so the amount of games I actually play is pretty low. But before a tournament, so for example, for EYC, I've already started my prep. I've recognized that in the last couple months, I've just kind of been coasting on Lugia, so I have not really put the time in where I should be. Like, I don't know, I didn't put a ton of time in Surging Sparks because I just was like, I'm going to play Lugia. Why not? So I've acknowledged that I'm going to try to, it's a pretty lofty goal, but I told myself I'm going to try to get 1,000 games played before UIC.
Okay.
Which, it's pretty unrealistic. I understand that I'm probably not going to get there. But if I set my sights that high, I can try. And so, for example, like yesterday was my first day starting, and I got 38 games in.
Okay.
But it did take most of the day, and I don't think I'll be able to keep that same pace, obviously. And for example, like I don't mind sharing. Like I'm going to try every deck is my thought process. Like at least 10, 15 games with each deck, get an idea of how they work. So I was trying Miraidon yesterday.
Okay.
And Miraidon is fast, but let's say I try playing Guardy. Guardy's going to be slow.
Yeah.
Or Control. Control is going to take time.
Yeah, then you probably won't get 38 games in the game.
It'll be like one Guardy game an hour, basically.
Yeah. So you basically already think about the rotation and what to do after Lugia.
Yes.
And
Put the time in, and I also trust my my teammates, my training group. Like Isaiah Bradner is kind of like the lead. Like you have to have one person you guys fully trust. And for us, it's Isaiah because he puts the most time in and the most work in. So when he tells me that he put the work into something in a deck, I trust him completely. And it's not like we don't challenge the ideas. Like you should be challenging each other's ideas in the process. You should be questioning each other's ideas. You should be, but because you all trust each other, at the end of the day, if someone says like if it came to a Lugia question, the whole group would trust me, no questions asked. But for example, like Isaiah's been cooking up these Drago lists over and over and over again. So when it comes to Drago, we're not going to question him, you know? Like, so it's one of those things where like it's a mutual trust in each other. That's also part of a friendship. So we have a Discord group where we'll kind of be on there. Not everyone gets on. There's like a lot of people, right? And everyone has different lives. But I like to be on even if I'm not playing games. Like in the evening, like I'll go to the gym, I'll join the Discord call, I'll mute myself, and I'll just watch them playing games. So it's like I'm still getting that experience, but I'm doing other stuff.
That's so nice to hear because with what you have with the group, it's like really something special. You know these guys for a long period of time, and you tell me, it feels like friendship.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome. I think that is what the Pokemon TCG also wants, not something like heartless training. And
No.
I'm in a training group and I will put my logo here, and then, but there's no heart behind it, and that's really cool. I really do appreciate that because, I'm a social educator myself. I love that Pokemon.
The biggest thing is like I think for our group too is just like if we weren't friends, I don't think we'd have the same dynamic that we've built. Like I think if it's just purely like transactional at the end of the day, it feels a lot harder when you don't get results, you know? Like you'll be more at each other's throats because the whole purpose is like to succeed, right, as a group. And when you don't do that, then you put your friendship to the test. But for us, it's like someone did bad, you know, pat him on the back, go next. And if someone's doing good, like for example in Birmingham, I did pretty poorly, but next day morning I was there with everyone. I was walking around, making sure that they knew what their matchups were going to be the next day, scouting for them. Like we have genuine care for each other at the end of the day. Like, even at Worlds, like most of the group did pretty poorly besides me and Isaiah, and everyone like as soon as I came off stream, I didn't have much time to play my asymmetry game. They told me I had 5 minutes. So, in those 5 minutes, obviously I had to go to the bathroom, you know, get a drink of water, or whatever. The group had already started like scouting the list, figuring out what I'm playing against. I have like my crew. It was like having like a group of security guards walking with me to the table, being like, "Be sure you're ready. Do this, do this." I'm like, "Okay, got it. Thank you, coach." You know, kind of thing. So that's like something I just find so invaluable because they're there to pick you up when you're doing well. They're there to lift you up when you're having a bad day, and I think that goes further than anything else for me.
That's so nice to hear. I'm a little bit jealous about that, I have to admit. I mean, I play against my children, and I am at the local league. I'm a basic judge, and I try to get children involved into the game and just play and have fun. But for you to travel around the world with friends and play that game, that just sounds really awesome.
It's just a cool experience. It's like a constant it's like those experiences that tell you have in university where like you travel the world with your friends, but it's like we just do it nonstop. And it's all different age groups too. Like for example, I'm 29, John's like 23, 24, Isaiah and Reagan are like 19, 20. So it's like we still find ways to get along and experience these things that we wouldn't get a chance otherwise.
Okay, so let's get to another part. I think that is a really interesting question. I also told my community, hey, if you have specific questions or other for Rahul, just what are your thoughts when someone, like a new player, he starts now and he says, my goal is to be at Worlds 2026. Can he?
I think it's doable.
It's doable.
It's doable. I mean, I think like setting your goals high is very realistic, but you have to understand you have to put the time and the work in. Like you can't just say you're going to get to 2026 Worlds and just kind of hope that it falls into your lap at the end of the day. You have to put the time in. You have to put the hours in because you have a lot of catching up to do these players. Even from players who started a year before you, you have you have to catch up to those guys. You have to catch up to the people who have gotten real life regional experience, real life cup experience. So you got to put some time in. You got to make sure you put. There's no cheating hard work. There's zero way to cheat hard work. So you got to put the hard work in. Make sure you get where you need to be, and then once you have done everything you need to do, play the best you can on each individual day. And if the results come your way, that's all that it takes. I think that setting a goal that lofty is a little bit scary at times, but for some people it's motivating. For me, like, I don't look at, each season I don't come and be like, I need to make it to Worlds. If I have a bad year and I don't make Worlds, it's not the end of the world. I'm obviously going to be really sad about it. But like at the beginning of this season, I told myself, each individual tournament is important. At the end of the day, if I played well and if I get the results I need, I will be at the World Championships. If I didn't, then I won't.
What an awesome mindset, I have to say. It's really something you can that you can learn and take that for your own. So that player goes to his first regional, 1,000, 2,000 players. What are your tips? What do he have to, or does he have to do, or bring himself with, or probably Stuttgart for me was I was nervous. My hands were shaking, and I was just nervous. So what can you give new players?
I think the biggest thing is how you won't realize how uncomfortable it's going to be for a long day until you actually get there. It's not your local league. It's not going to be familiar opponents. It's not going to be you can walk outside to your corner store, get some food in between rounds. You can't walk up and talk to the store owner and grab a drink. It's going to be long days, a lot of people. Make sure you come bring water, hydration, whatever. Bring food, bring snacks. Not every single time the venue is going to have food. If you don't have decent food at the venue, then it just might, you're going to be sitting there dizzy, not being able to think, whatever. Be comfortable with your deck. If you have friends that you're coming with, make sure you have like a plan of where you're going to meet and stuff in between rounds, because sometimes it's really hectic. Like our group usually just says like whoever finishes first will just be like, I'm at table 400 something, and then we come and find each other, just sit down, talk for a little bit, because if you're walking around each round, it's a lot. But above all else, remember to have fun, because like winning, while it's really awesome and everything, it's not everything. Like in Birmingham, for example, I had one of the worst tournaments of my life, right? But I had a really cool opportunity to talk to so many people that have been following my content, following my journey, in day one and day two, because I just, didn't do well. It's like I was just standing around for a lot of the day, and it was cool talking to so many people that came to their first tournament, that are experiencing the regional circuit, the IC circuit coming up in UIC soon for the first time, and soak it all in. Like you don't know how often you'll get these experiences, and it's just cool to enjoy it. Go to the vendors, blow off some steam, burn some money, whatever. Money will come back, fun won't,
So at the end of
I think the biggest thing is
just having a good day is probably
having a good time, be comfortable, do what you can to get out of your anxious state. I know anxiety is very real. I get it pretty badly sometimes too before tournaments. Like I'm just as prone to it, even though I've been to hundreds of these at this point. But the night before, sometimes it gets tough, So the biggest thing I think is like be comfortable with your deck, have a good group, or just kind of be ready, and make sure you do what you can to make it as normal of a day as possible for yourself. Like I always pick up a couple snacks in the morning. I try to eat a good breakfast before the tournament. I get some caffeine, get like a Coke Zero, get some energy drinks, have them ready to go for the tournament. Chocolate helps me a lot. So I always have a chocolate bar in my backpack during tournaments. Just know what you need as a person, because when you hit like round 6, like 5, 6, that's when it's going to start pushing you to your limit.
Yeah, I remember that. I was so, my whole body and mind was just, I was so tired at the end of the day. But it was a great experience. Let's look a little bit to the future. Talk about the rotation itself. Are you excited for the rotation, and what are your thoughts about that? I mean, obviously, Yuga is going to go. That's what you already told, and you experimented liked. You do a lot of training sessions now, but just your thoughts general about rotation and this particular one.
I think this is a big one, probably the biggest one we've had in a long time because for the last couple of years, V Pokemon or the Sword and Shield block in general has been pretty oppressive on the game. I think it's been progressively making like the fact that our like some of our best decks in the format right now are Silver Tempest cards, which were released 2 years ago,
Mm.
over 2 years ago even at this point, right? I think it's been a while. It says a lot about the game that these new Scarlet Violet cards have not really made an impact.
Mm.
Refinement Curlia and Drago and Lugia and these cards that have been in the game for 2 years, V stars in general have been so oppressive on the game. And it takes a deck like Raging Bolt where like all you're doing is smashing your head against the wall to try to beat through these decks to even have a chance. But I think once rotation happens, the game gets a lot slower. V star powers are gone. Games don't end in 2 turns. Badu is in the format. I think people are going to play evolution decks.
Mm.
There's going to be a lot of stuff that we haven't looked at, maybe older EXs that we haven't taken a chance to look at. Like Charizard will obviously still be good, right? Like Charizard has the innate ability, it has the damage, all that good stuff.
Mm.
But Charizard gets slower. You don't have V Pokemon anymore. You have Rotom, you don't have Luminion, you don't have Sealstone. So every deck gets slower in its own right, meaning it opens up the door for like random stuff. Who knows? Someone could pull up with Meowscarada. Someone could be playing, I don't know. There's probably other stage twos and stage ones.
Mm.
And so far, everything we've seen from the new expansion journeys together doesn't seem crazy broken.
Mm.
Everything seems okay,
Yeah.
and I think that's good. I think seeing a card and saying that seems okay, that's like a fine thing to say. Because if we see a card, you go, "That's absolutely broken," then the game is once again broken. So I'm fortunate. I think that we'll have one of the cooler metagames in a long time.
Mhm.
It's going to start in Atlanta Regionals, which will be interesting because that's something I'll be at. And then I think there's a European special event a couple weeks later, maybe 2 weeks later.
Mm.
Utrecht, I think, something like that.
Oh, could be, yeah.
But we don't have a lot of tournaments in that format, and then we jump right into NAIC. Like, so we get like back-to-back 2 sets. NAIC comes up, and then Worlds. So it'll be one of the more interesting Worlds, I think, to watch. One of the more interesting ICs to watch. And I'm not personally a very good deck builder. I can tell you that much. But I'm excited to try things out. And once something clicks in my head, it really clicks. So I'm hoping that my group can figure out something good for me.
Okay. Okay. And what about the next years? Will we have a time where we have 500 HP Pokemon and basic attacks with like 300 attack damage or something like that? We have like I'm about for this Pokemon TCG I'm playing like 2 years, but
Yep.
every set. Yeah, 10 damage more, 10 HP more. It's like a power spiral. Is this going to be forever, or what are your thoughts about that?
I think we're finally seeing in the last couple sets that it has not been as crazy. It was pretty bad for a little bit, I think. But I think Scarlet Violet definitely wasn't as crazy. Like I think most of the cards seem pretty balanced. I think the same thing with the new cards we've seen so far. As long as there's no like tag teams or something crazy that spawns out of nowhere again, I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Then I'm relieved. Yeah. More like a personal question. Are you also a Pokemon card collector? Or do you...
To some degree, yes.
Okay. So do you have like a really nostalgic card in your card in your collection? Like with a experience or?
I have my first ever. So my favorite Pokemon's Umbreon, unfortunately for me. So I do have a binder with every English Umbreon almost.
Oh, okay.
I'm missing, I think, 7.
Yeah.
The new alt art from Prismatic is one, which is going to be pretty expensive, and then the old Gold Star is another one that I'm missing. So the two of those are like on the list at some point. Hopefully that I get a little bit of a break to. If I win one of these regionals, I'll just go buy one. But gotta win one first. But I have a binder of just cards that I think look cool, and cards that I've played in. Like I have my old Worlds decks virtually sleeved up as the exact same way they are. So I have some old cards that I played, like the Mew EX from back in Dragons Exalted. I still have that one in my binder.
Yeah.
Because I thought the art's really pretty. I have a couple of the Black and White era like EX Pokemon, like Thundurus, those guys. I just never sell anything. Like I'm pretty much a big hoarder. I don't know if you can see like behind my bed a little bit.
Yeah.
There's like a castle of cards.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are all filled with like like bulk from
Okay.
whatever sets from years and years and years. So
That was also one question. So what do you do with your bulk? So like you collect your
that
bulk.
they just go there. I
Okay.
don't usually open a lot of product. I try to open maybe one box each set if I
Hmm.
can. And then if I win sealed product, I keep it sealed. If I win loose packs at like a league cup or a challenge, I just open those. I don't really care.
Okay.
And then most of the time, if I'm at a challenge or a cup, they usually have like donation bins for like younger
Hmm.
kids and people to play. So I'll just take what I think is good out of the packs and just leave the rest there for the younger
Okay.
kids.
Ah.
Because I don't really need to take them home and do anything with them.
How sympathetic do you want to be, Rahul? Yes. um, okay. I only have one last question, and that's like, is there anything you want to say to the players out there? Really something from your heart, or just some tips, or anything in particular, or especially for the German community?
Just thank you guys so much for supporting me. Thank you for always, being there. It's been kind of incredible to see the support that I've had. I'm just a guy playing Pokemon who wants to share my experiences. And at the end of the day, my content is just to help newer players and kind of get people into the game. Um, just kind of want to have my own fun with my content and hope you guys are having fun as well. But yeah, just from the bottom of my heart, just thank you as always for the support. And I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. For you, my German viewers, for you to know, in the video description, there is the X link and the YouTube channel from Rahul. Check it out and subscribe. Look at the videos and learn more than you can learn here. And then, with that being said, I wish you all a very, nice evening. Thank you. And thank you, Rahul, for taking the time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me, guys.